Hello and a warm welcome. You're watching South Central on ET Now. This is the show that you need to tune into to get the latest on business, politics, policy, and every single story making headlines right here in South India. My name is Jude Sanath, and these are the top stories we're tracking at this hour. Karnataka's long-awaited cabinet expansion finally takes place. Chief Minister DK Shivakumar's A-team moves up from 20 ministers to 34. The move is being seen as a crucial attempt at keeping the state Congress united ahead of local body elections and the 2028 assembly elections. Hyderabad scores a 6.5 out of 10 in the India Partners Startup Readiness Index. The city scores big on infrastructure, talent availability and cost efficiency, but lags in access to growth capital and markets. On the show today, we break down some of these findings with a special panel of experts. As the Kaveri face-off between Tamil Nadu and Karnataka continues, farmers in Tamil Nadu stage an unusual protest against Karnataka's refusal to release water by burying themselves in the sand. Meanwhile, the Kaveri Dam in Karnataka releases excess water to Tamil Nadu after days of heavy rainfall. Zoho co-founder Sridhar Vembu warns about the economic consequences of AI. The chief scientist at Zoho says India's biggest challenge is to create employment opportunities for the youth when companies are turning more productive while clamping down on hiring. 17,900 crore rupees, that's the total quantum of investments that Prime Minister Modi unveils in Andhra Pradesh over the weekend. Prime Minister Modi was in the state to inaugurate the Bhogapuram airport in Andhra's Vizianagaram district. A top story first. Karnataka Chief Minister DK Shivakumar has carried out the first major expansion of his government, inducting 20 new ministers into the state cabinet and taking it to its full sanctioned strength of 34 members. The expansion comes just over 2 months after DKS replaced former Chief Minister Siddharamaiah for the top political job in Karnataka. The cabinet expansion now, many point out, is aimed at strengthening regional, caste and community representation while filling all vacant ministerial positions. So let's take a look at who the new ministers are. There's PM Narendra Swamy, Shivaraj Tangadagi, Rudrappa Lamani, KS Basavantappa, there's B Nagendra, T Raghumurthy, Z Zamir Ahmed Khan, Rizwan Arshad, Santosh Lad, Madhu Bangarappa, Putturanga Shetty, Makala Nvaidya, Dr. Ajay Singh, N Cheluvaraya Swamy, KM Shivalinga Gowda, H.C. Balakrishna, Gayatri Shantegowda, Basavaraj Raya Reddy, there's Vijayanand Kashapavanar and Lakshman Savari. Now, alongside the cabinet expansion, the Congress has also announced key legislative appointments, with G.S. Patil named Speaker of the Karnataka Legislative Assembly, A.S. Ponnana as Deputy Speaker, Salem Ahmed as Chairperson of the Legislative Council, and Umashri as Deputy Chairman. Now, together, the appointments complete the new government's top political and legislative leadership structure across the state. In fact, let's go across to my colleague Akshara, who brings us this report.
We spoke to a few of the Congress leaders regarding the very same issue. We in fact spoke to Madhu Bangarappa, who is the second time a minister here in the state of Karnataka. We questioned him over the lack of representation, but what he had to say is that he doesn't want to comment on that. It is left to the High Command. So yes, it does raise concern about the representation of the women in the cabinet as well and overall in the political arena. Now remember when even during when tickets were being issued for the assembly elections here in Karnataka as well, many women leaders from the state of Karnataka approached Siddharamaiah and few leaders here in the Congress stating that they must be given a ticket and there must be women representation as well. So this particular issue has been raised by the leaders from the Congress party. So, but yes, at the very same time, the lack of representation has once again raised issue. You had in the previous cabinet as well under Siddharamaiah, there was just only one female minister in this particular cabinet, Lakshmi Hebalkar. But during this time as well, there's just one. So lack of representation from lack of representation of women has been raised now and then by the female leaders of the Congress as well.
Oh, well, some issues then continue to persist, one might think, with regard to the expanded Karnataka cabinet, but when has it not? And to bring us more insight and perspective on DK Shivakumar's expanded Karnataka cabinet, we're now joined by senior political journalist Madhavan Narayanan. Madhavan, great to have you with us here, as always, on South Central. One might think that the expanded Karnataka cabinet, in many ways, Madhavan, could well be the end of these issues that DKS has faced in his rather short stint as Karnataka chief minister, yet having to balance caste equations, having to balance power centers within the state. But you just can't keep everyone happy now, can you, Madhavan?
Yeah, actually, I'm surprised you said that it would be the end of difficulties. I would never look at it that way. In Karnataka, it's a perpetual work in progress to balance conflict with various interests. Let me put it this way for viewers of ET now across the country, which is that if you, in general, caste and community balance in India is a tough challenge to pull off in cabinet formation, particularly in Bihar and Karnataka. And I would say especially in Karnataka, because in addition to the caste and community and regional balance that you spoke of, we also now have gender and what I call Gen Z balances that is also seeming to be enforced, especially after the Jantar Mantar protest. There seems to be an attempt to bring in a flavor of youth or something in youth. As I see it, this, Gayatri Shantagoda was supposed to be part of the cabinet expansion list, which your correspondent also mentioned. But there is the other thing that she has not yet formally taken over as an MLC and that member of the Legislative Council, and therefore it's a technicality, and she will come in, and she's also seen to be close to former Chief Minister Sridhar Vembu and from the same Kuruba community, but he's skipping the cabinet expansion. So, typically what happens is Karnataka is a political powder keg, and people always do overthinking.
Right.
This overthinking is a very important aspect of Karnataka politics and analysis. And I'm sitting in Delhi right now. I've served in Karnataka before, but there's a limit to which you can overanalyze things. As Shivakumar, the chief minister himself said, that he himself had to wait for so long to become the chief minister, therefore others should also wait. So BJP is trying to make a big deal out of the gender issue in the cabinet, but there are others who say even the union cabinet under Mr. Prime Minister Narendra Modi lacks sufficient women's representation because Nirmala Sitharaman is the only cabinet minister rank minister.
Absolutely.
So, but because Congress has an emphasis on women's reservation bill and participation of women, BJP is trying to do what you would call the politics of embarrassment on this. But I think it's a less of a deal because if you know Karnataka politics like I do, you see you reeled off names, and I could see that there were several names from the Lingayat community, which has been BJP's strength because even now the BJP state president is, Vijayendra is a Lingayat community representation. And Shivakumar himself belongs to the Vokaligas. Therefore, there is a Vokaliga Lingayat balance, and there is an emerging strength of the Kuruba community represented by Mr. Sridhar Vembu and a general OBC, or what is called the other, the less known OBCs. And Congress has its own peculiar problem because Dinesh Gundurao, who was son of former Chief Minister Gundurao, has just been kept out of the cabinet and he's disappointed. But Congress has its own loyalty syndrome where, people like former Chief Minister's son, Dharam Singh's son, Ajay Singh, former Chief Minister Bangarappa's son, Madhu Bangarappa, are also part of this whole somewhat dynastic system. So there is a lot of messy. It's like a Rubik's Cube where if you make one color match, another goes away. So I'm not surprised.
Madhavan, I must commend you for painting such an elaborate picture on just how difficult it is to get the formula right in Karnataka. And what can I say? Patience, I'm sure, must be a virtue if you ever were in politics in Karnataka itself. But Madhavan, if I could just ask you to again set some context for our viewers, how crucial was it for DKS to get the formula just right this time around, given that local body election that's upon us, the 2028 assembly elections too? It's pretty much now or never for the Congress in Karnataka and DKS himself, you'd reckon?
I'm not sure you can say, you can't say never in Karnataka for a very simple reason. Because unlike the northern states, it's not a Hindutva-dominated state. Hindutva is a very important part of Karnataka politics, particularly in the coastal regions of Udupi and Dakshin Kannada and all. But otherwise, community caste balance is important and regional balance is important. I dare say that Shivakumar has done a decent job of ensuring the balance from what I can quickly glance from. There's a lot of lack of information because the information is still trickling in as we speak because the cabinet expansion is going on. So it is crucial, no doubt, but I would not say this is a threatening situation because the BJP is as much on the back foot in its own way. If you look at the bigger picture today in assembly by-polls in Bihar, BJP has done badly. So there is always there are ifs and buts in politics. In a sense, Karnataka seems to be a safer bet for Congress than the other states, but there's a hell of a lot of hard work to do, and that is exactly what Shivakumar is doing right now. And there is a high command syndrome. There is a high command syndrome. He has to balance not only opposition BJP, he has to balance high command wishes, and he has to come in, like a built-in voltage stabilizer. There is a built-in dissidence in the form of Siddharamaiah. So Shivakumar is walking the tightrope reasonably well, I would say.
Right. Well, Madhavan, it's a tightrope walk politically for DKS, both within and without. I'm guessing that's the only way one can sum it up. But thank you so much for joining us with that analysis and breaking down some of these insights for our viewers. Great having you with us on the show, as always. Right, moving on next. Over the past decade, Hyderabad has steadily built one of India's strongest innovation ecosystems, and now the numbers tell the story. The Hyderabad Innovation Report 2026, released a fortnight ago, says the city is home to 10,000 plus startups, has attracted over $3 billion in venture funding across 384 plus deals since 2014, hosts 355 plus global capability centers, accounting for nearly 20% of India's GCC base, and has also emerged as the country's second largest tech talent hub with 9.46 lakh IT professionals. Now, startup funding alone surged 160% year-on-year to $571 million in 2024, while the city continues to expand across AI, life sciences, enterprise software, and deep tech. But while Hyderabad has proven it can create startups, can it now create global champions? That's the key question posed by the Hyderabad Startup Readiness Index 2026, which featured as part of that report. Based on responses from 216 founders, investors, corporates, and ecosystem stakeholders, the survey gives the city an ecosystem confidence score of 6.5 out of 10. In fact, it identifies infrastructure, talent availability, and cost efficiency as Hyderabad's biggest strengths. But it also points to the next set of challenges, like access to growth capital and market access, suggesting that the next phase of Hyderabad's journey is no longer about building startups, but helping them scale into globally competitive businesses. So what does Hyderabad need to do to scale the Startup Readiness Index? That's exactly what we'll find out today, as I'm joined by my panel of experts. We have Veda Sampath, partner at India Partners. India, remember, worked on that Startup Readiness report. I'm also joined by Ratnakar Samavedan, investment director and managing partner at Hyderabad Angels Fund. Veda and Ratnakar, thanks so much for joining us in South Central today. Veda, let me start with you. Now, the report says Hyderabad has built the fundamentals, right? 10,000 plus startups, $3 billion in funding, over 350 GCCs. What's stopping the city now from becoming a global category startup leader, so to speak? Veda.
Thank you so much for having me and India Partners as part of this event. I think I would just step back a little bit and actually say that Hyderabad has produced global category leaders, right? Look at Bharat Biotech, which has supplied vaccines across the world. Darwinbox, High Radius, etc., have 1,000 plus enterprise customers across multiple countries in the world. There is Zenoti present in 50 plus countries. So these are all category leaders. I think where Hyderabad has to play a little bit of catch up is essentially doing this on a more regular basis. And I think what I see as the primary bottleneck in that is, like you said earlier, providing market access, right? So we have an installed base of 350 to 400 plus GCCs in the city, and we haven't yet tapped into the commercial potential of these GCCs to provide market access to these startups. So that's what I see as the primary bottleneck. And then the second thing, of course, which is a minor one, is access to growth capital locally, right? So all of these companies that I mentioned, they have been able to access growth capital, but outside of Hyderabad, either within India or globally. So capital does follow companies that reach a certain stage and have the potential to become category leaders. But I think access to that capital locally would just accelerate the ecosystem significantly.
I'm glad you bring that up, Veda, because let me go on to Ratnakar next. Ratnakar, that readiness index identifies growth capital, like Veda was mentioning, as perhaps one of the bigger gaps that Hyderabad is facing. A shortage of capital. But the fact is, do you think it is perhaps a shortage of capital, or do you think it's more of a shortage of startups that are possibly investment ready, Ratnakar? Is it merely down to a binary of either or? What is your take?
With regard to shortage of capital, I don't see larger problem today because Hyderabad has large number of high net worth individuals and family offices who would like to invest in growth stage companies, that is especially Series A, Series B or Series C companies. The biggest challenge we see in Hyderabad is because Hyderabad majorly developed on deep tech. You know that Skyroot and Dhruva Space or Heterodrugs, a lot of the pharma companies which have grown big, they need a patient capital for long term. The question came is, what is that long term, whether 5 to 8 years? And what I understand from most of the investors are looking for an exit in 4 to 5 years. I think that gap has to be addressed right now. But I see the capital is coming to Hyderabad and currently market is looking very poised. As Ved also said, especially in tech side, Series A, Series B growth traction has becoming a challenge because Bangalore is taking a larger stake in South compared to Hyderabad today.
Right. That's interesting. In fact, I want to bring Veda back into the discussion itself. The fact is that, what Ratnakar is saying is capital may not be that big of an issue with regard to, growth stage startups itself. But I have to ask you, Veda, given the fact that infrastructure and even talent, in your report mentions it as well, ranks as some of Hyderabad's biggest strengths, has the ecosystem now perhaps outgrown these advantages with market access, I beg your pardon, becoming the real differentiator? Is that the main issue that we're dealing with, market access?
So I wouldn't say that we have outgrown talent and infrastructure as ingredients, right? I think they are essential ingredients. The only thing is that with the increasing maturity of the startup ecosystem, they have become table stakes. So it is true that, and the GCC base, which provides a lot of talent to startups, is only growing in Hyderabad. So that's a positive sign, right? And that will have to continue. But at the same time, I think to move companies from seed to Series A to Series B to and then growth stages, we do need to create channels for market access, and that's what the next stage of growth for the ecosystem needs to be.
Right. Ratnakar, coming back to you, you mentioned how, access to capital may not be of much of an issue at this time and place. And in fact, that report also concurs largely with what you're saying, because the fact is it mentions how the city's startup funding actually jumped 160% in 2024. Now, do you think that the year itself was perhaps the beginning of an inflection point, a sustained recovery, or was it a flash in the pan of sorts driven largely by a handful of large funding rounds? How has capital and how has funding progressed from that big jump in 2024 to what it's like today in Hyderabad?
I think overall capital growth in India has been stable for last 2 years or so. But in the given lot, Hyderabad has moved fourth in ladder in terms of funding, in terms of startup, and in terms of valuation. When you compare with Bangalore, Delhi, and Bombay and Chennai, I think that's a very, very positive outcome, and we are becoming more and more stronger as we move forward. The only thing what is lagging beyond, as you said, is large VCs are showing interest in Hyderabad, but our culture, most of our culture are, most of the founders are self-risk taken. They're focusing on balance sheet and return on capital employed instead of burning cash to grow the revenue. That is not there with the Hyderabad ecosystem is concerned. They're always a balance sheet managers, very well manage the balance sheet, leverage on it, and grow the top line sustainably, and they become very relevant. That one thing is pushing little here and there, but what I understand from large VCs, currently they're happy that kind of startups they need, and more funds are coming to Hyderabad today. And expecting this jump will continue another 4 or 5 years, especially in Hyderabad is concerned.
Right. Absolutely. Veda, coming back to you, even as we're talking about all of these factors, the fact is that your survey gives the ecosystem in Hyderabad a confidence score of 6.5 out of 10. What do you think needs to change over the next 3 to 5 years for the city to score, let's say, a really good 8 or 9 on this index?
See, the way I see it, I think it's just the typical, maturation curve of any ecosystem, right? So the first 5 years, if you take a 10-year cycle, for example, the first 5 years, I think, is where you generate all of the inputs. And then, the next 2-3 years is probably where you generate some outputs, Series A, Series B funding. And then, the points 9 and 10 would be probably when you generate exits at a regular pace, right? So that's kind of what needs to change from the ecosystem's perspective, in addition to, of course, what we spoke about earlier, creating access to customers more regularly.
Well, Veda, Ratnakar, I think the writing is on the wall and it's in black and white. The fact is that while Hyderabad has made great progress, there's just simply so much potential to look forward to. And that, in many ways, could well be the enduring story of Hyderabad's great startup success. So on that note, Veda, Ratnakar, thank you so much for joining us on South Central and breaking down some of these insights from that Startup Readiness Index report. Good to have you with us both, as always. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Moving on, but staying with tech, Zoho co-founder and chief scientist Sridhar Vembu has reignited the debate about artificial intelligence and the future of jobs, warning that India needs to start preparing for the economic consequences of AI-driven automation. In a post on X, Vembu said the country's biggest challenge is creating enough employment opportunities for its young workforce at a time when technology companies are becoming more productive without adding proportionate number of jobs. In fact, Sridhar also noted that while there have been no layoffs at Zoho, hiring at the company has remained largely flat, reflecting a broader shift in the industry. In fact, according to him, that money that companies are once spent on hiring is now increasingly being diverted towards AI infrastructure, including servers, chips, and data centers. So as governments and businesses grapple with these changes, the Zoho boss in many ways is saying the world needs to start finding answers to the employment challenge, even suggesting that ideas like universal basic income may eventually have to become part of that conversation. Moving on, in a dramatic protest on the banks of the Kaveri in Tiruchirappalli, farmers buried themselves neck deep in sand, demanding the immediate release of water from Karnataka for irrigation. Led by farmers' leader P. Ayakarne, the protesters accused Karnataka of releasing only surplus water instead of Tamil Nadu's rightful share, warning that delays could severely impact the ongoing Cauvery cultivation season. They also renewed their opposition to Karnataka's proposed Mekedatu Dam project, saying it would further reduce downstream water availability. But there could finally be some relief for Tamil Nadu just around the corner. In fact, water has been released from Karnataka's Kaveri reservoir and is expected to reach Tamil Nadu shortly after heavy rainfall in the Kaveri catchment sharply increased reservoir inflows. In fact, the development comes just days after the Kaveri Water Regulation Committee directed Karnataka to release 3,500 cusecs of water every day for 15 days, even as the state maintained that it would explore legal options against that order. In fact, the fresh inflows have eased immediate pressure on Karnataka, allowing it to resume releases while renewing its pitch for the proposed Mekedatu balancing reservoir as a long-term solution to the recurring dispute. Now, for Tamil Nadu, the additional water is expected to provide some much-needed support for the ongoing Kuruvai cultivation season, although the larger Kaveri water-sharing dispute remains quite far from being resolved. Now, switching focus to Andhra Pradesh next, it's a bumper investment tally that's come the state's way. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has launched and laid the foundation stone for development projects worth nearly 17,900 crore rupees in the state, with a strong focus on aviation, semiconductors, clean energy and coastal infrastructure. The marquee projects include the inauguration of the Alluri Sitarama Raju International Airport at Bogapuram, and the foundation stone is being laid for Andhra's first semiconductor manufacturing facility in Visakhapatnam. Prime Minister Modi also outlined a vision to transform Andhra's coastline into a major economic corridor backed by modern ports, improved connectivity and industrial investments, thereby positioning the state as one of India's key future growth regions. And with that, it's a wrap on the show today. Thanks so much for watching South Central. We'll be back tomorrow with more news and updates on South India. But for the moment, it's goodbye from us.